Hello. I completely forgot what I was going to say, but stuff still happened. So what's up? We're doing it again. We're doing it again. All of it over again. Last week, I talked about Western governments going after groups of protesters, labeling them terrorists, and hitting them with terrorism charges. We looked at a handful of groups. We looked over in England, where they did that because of Palestine action, and now we've got it again here at home. Oh, come on now. We've got authoritarian miscarriages of justice at home. We don't need to pay extra for the drive-thru. The Prairieland 19 are a group of people who have been targeted by the Trump administration to be made an example of, labeling them as members of an Antifa cell. You may remember that the Trump administration signed an executive order basically saying, hey, the Justice Department is going to stamp down on anyone espousing leftist beliefs because we're going to label you as Antifa. Well, they're trying to make good on that with their whole, we love law and order, watch us do that at you thing. So what actually happened? I'm gonna quickly go over what actually happened, why these people are being targeted, and the sentencing that they got that is utterly absurd. Because these 8 people were sentenced to a total of 450 years of prison. What did they do to bring on such a sentence? Mass murder? Grand larceny? Hoarding gold bars? We'll get back to that one. On July 4th, 2025, a bunch of protesters went to this facility to launch fireworks in solidarity with the people who were being detained there. As a reminder, these are called detention centers. They're effectively concentration camps, and the government is holding detainees with no due process. If anyone in this country does not have due process, none of us do. Now, during the events that unfolded after all of this started, an officer was shot by one of these people. One of the guys at the protest, Benjamin Song, had a gun and shot an officer. The officer survived, and Song maintains that the shot was defensive as the officer pulled a gun on another one of the protesters who was unarmed and fleeing. The one shot hit the officer fired back. That's it, everyone lived. From there, the Justice Department would routinely go after these people, trying to hit them with the biggest possible charges, including aiding terrorism groups. So October 2025, the first of the indictments is handed down. Only 2 of the people were indicted. Another indictment came down the next month with 9 people. In total, there are 19 people who are being in some capacity charged with stuff, and 8 of them recently received their sentencing. That's the 450 years group. Benjamin Song, the one that shot the officer, got the largest sentence, 100 years in prison. He was convicted of rioting, material support for terrorists, attempted murder, explosive charges, and firearms charges. He did have a gun. That's fair. Guns are also legal. Most of the rest were convicted of rioting, material support for terrorists, and explosive charges, and a lot of them got 50 years apiece. And in my opinion, the most absurd sentencing was for Daniel Ronaldo Sanchez Estrada, who was found guilty of concealing documents and conspiracy to conceal documents, sentenced to 30 years in prison. What did he do? He moved a box of left-leaning zines out of his partner's house. And presumably those zines, which were basically just like pamphlets with some progressive-leaning ideology on them, landed this guy 30 years in prison. As a reminder, the sitting president of the United States, who signed the executive order to direct the Department of Justice to go after people with these massive sentences, was found guilty of 34 felonies and saw exactly 0 days of the inside of a jail cell. But hey, you know, they fucked around and found out. And I've seen the takes from some people online who were like, yeah, justice. They shouldn't have done that. That's what they get. Let's just go ahead and take a look at average sentence lengths of other crimes. As a reminder, nobody died. One person was shot and lived. There's this thing called the United States Sentencing Commission, and they gather data about sentencing. They've got a nice interactive graph that you can see the average sentence length for various crimes. So here's murder. In 2025, the average duration for the sentencing for murder was about 24 years. Benjamin Song, who did discharge a weapon but didn't kill anyone, received more than 4 times the national average sentencing for murder. Sanchez Estrada received 125% of the average duration for murder. The guy that moved some papers. Well, let's take a look at child pornography. I don't like how I said that. We're going to rework that one. Let's take a look at the statistics for people who were incarcerated for child pornography. In 2025, the median duration for child porn sentencing was about 8 years. 8. Unrelated, on January 6th, 140 officers were injured and one died the next day from related injuries. The longest sentencing of anyone from January 6th went to the leader of the Proud Boys, who was found guilty of seditious conspiracy and was sentenced to 22 years. Donald Trump then pardoned everyone who was involved in January 6th, getting them all out in about 2 years. It was to the point that officers who were involved in the trials for these people, who testified against them, were warned, like, hey, these people are back out on the streets and they might want to get back at you. But the thing that we didn't consider is that not one of them moved a box of magazines, not even a little bit. So they have to go free. This is all developing, it's all very new, but don't let this deter you from going out and demonstrating. That's what they want this to do. This is entirely them trying to chill free speech. There's no other way to interpret it. The judge himself was like, I'm going to make an example out of you. Like, which is not allowed, but when has that mattered? Just remember, if you are going to go to a demonstration and you can leave your phone at home, do so. Also, if you are coordinating with people to do whatever, you cannot trust an app is going to ever be secure. Even if it's an encrypted messaging app, it doesn't matter. All it takes is one person who wasn't supposed to see that phone screen while your message is up for it to be compromised. It doesn't all come down to encryption. You could be in the most encrypted chat ever, but if there's a Fed in there, you're fucked. Anyway, I'm really mad about this and going to move on. For the sake of my blood pressure. Hey, thank you so much for being here. I know it's a rough one. If you like what I do and you want to help me keep doing this, it would go a long way if you want to check out isupport.dev. It's got links to my Patreon, my Ko-Fi, merch store, and a bunch of other ways that you can support me. Let's do a real sharp pivot, just a hell of a pivot. An ex-CIA officer tricked the CIA for 17 years into giving him a job and was recently arrested with millions of dollars worth of stolen gold bars. Yo. David Rush was a high-ranking CIA officer. He had fabricated his resume to get that job, and he was there for 17 years. He apparently applied to the CIA 3 times and was rejected twice, finally accepted. Each time that he applied, he added more fake line items to his resume. The fake items include his degree, military service, and claims of Navy pilot accolades, despite not having a pilot's license. So Rush works his way up through the CIA and then uses his seniority to create a fake operation that he then loops in a couple other people into. Given that this is the CIA, and if you're like on a project, you're not really talking to other people about what that project is, it was the perfect way to cover up all these loose ends. So Rush had this whole thing going on. He was like, hey, we got to transfer some gold to this project because it's going to be used to pay for operations to keep the country running in the event of a catastrophe. Those gold bars certainly went to something. What they went to was his basement. He got caught. He's standing trial now, but actually not for the gold bars. He's on trial for a separate charge of stealing from taxpayer money because he claimed $77,000 worth of military leave in the past, while not being in the military. Given that he had to forge his resume to get hired, that means that documents are a part of this case, which means he's going to get at least 50 years. Polyamory is not for everyone, but it is for some people, quite a few. I'm happy for you if you are poly. Please keep it out of my markets. The Wall Street Journal recently published a report about Polymarket, one of the leading prediction market apps. Prediction markets are a pretty new thing, but they're essentially a platform that people can bet on anything. Weather, traffic patterns, political appointees. There were even bets about the movements on the Iran war, and a bunch of very suspicious bets were placed right before major events occurred. But in this era of hustle culture and everyone's got to have passive income and side hustles, it's really taking off because, hey, you can make money. Look how easy it is. Just bet on random bullshit. And if you're right, you get money. Very reminiscent of crypto when everyone's like, oh, you just buy crypto and you get money. And that's how it works. So the Wall Street Journal did an investigation into Polymarket and found that Polymarket had been paying creators to produce videos of them faking winning bets. Creators were given money to create these ads, and they were given access to a fake version of Polymarket's website that allowed them to place fictitious bets and make it look like they were winning. Those videos were turned into social media posts that were not disclosed as ads, and then a bunch of people were paid to repost them. Now, shitty corporations being shitty about advertising practices and creators not disclosing ads is nothing new. That's a pervasive issue everywhere. But this is like another level of really going for it. The investigation went over more than 1,000 videos, and they drilled down to find videos where people actually placed bets, and they pulled some numbers. If you drill down into the videos that showed actually placing a bet, a fake bet, mind you, it was about $1.9 million worth of money placed in bets. The payouts were about 900 grand in fake money. But when investigators went back to check what you would have actually gotten if you made those bets that were shown in those videos, it would have actually been a $166,000 loss. Polymarket and Kalshi are like the big ones right now, and Kalshi is actually partnering with major media outlets to act as a data analysis platform. So the opinions of terminally online crypto bros is seeping its way into market discussions, which I guess we were kind of always there. But at time of writing, Polymarket hasn't really faced any major repercussions. Their response is basically, nah, and I wouldn't hold my breath on them actually facing consequences. Donald Trump Jr. sits on their advisory board. The corruption would be funny if it wasn't so pervasive. Like, it's a genuinely hysterical amount of corruption that's just like happening, just out in the open. And a significant portion of our countrymen are just like, nah. Anyway, update on the ceasefire. Y'all, I'm so tired. This was supposed to be an upbeat episode. I intended to cover a whole bunch of fun stuff, and I might force myself to do that next time. But as I was putting it together, it was just thing after thing after thing. Yeah, I only have so much brain space. I want to talk about bunnies. I don't know. Anyway, the Iran war is maybe kind of sort of on pause right now. There's active talks going on between the US and Iran towards peace. The memorandum of understanding that I talked about in last week's episode was signed by both the US and Iran. And since then, it has been a big question mark as to if it's going to hold. During peace talks, at one point, Trump actually threatened to restart the war. And also, Israel is still pounding Lebanon and refusing to leave. Iran says that the peace agreement is predicated on them getting out of Lebanon. So we really don't know what's going to happen here. As of now, Netanyahu is doing everything he can to be like, nah, this isn't the end. We're not going to stop doing this. But Trump went on TV and seemingly accidentally said that we've only got like 4 weeks of oil reserves left. So the whole thing is just kind of a mess. And we never should have been here to begin with. Who would have thunk it? A few ships are going through the Strait of Hormuz now, and hopefully that will return to normal levels eventually. But as of right now, it's all very tenuous. Man, a ceasefire happened, and then they didn't cease firing. Shocker. That's not what I've been saying in every episode for 3 years. Lightning round. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has stepped down because he was super, super unpopular. Recently elected Andy Burnham is going to likely take that spot. The price of Valve's Steam machine, their computer game console kind of thing, was announced, and it's much higher than we had hoped. This is in line with the Steam Deck going up in price, and it all has to do with the shortage of hardware due to AI. The co-founder of Ubisoft, died in a plane crash. Uboobies. And finally for today, the loudest person on Earth has set the world record for being very fucking loud. A man from Australia yelled the word now at over 122 decibels. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Stuff Keeps Happening. Head to skh.news for sources, bonus content, and me contending for being the loudest boy on the planet. Yeah. That was my attempt. My name is Endeavorance. We'll talk again soon. Take care and be well.